just as well. But it's my pleasure to kick off our next policy session, Inside Washington Hot Topics on Tech Policy. Over the next hour, you're going to hear 3 conversations with some very important high-ranking officials that are very influential in Washington, D.C. on technology policy. We invited for us to come out here at CES with us this year. On my right, it's my pleasure to introduce the Undersecretary for Science, Department of Energy, Dr. Dario Gil. His reputation does precede him, and rightfully so. But for any of those in the room that might not be familiar, Dr. Gil, could you just quickly recap who you are and what the Office of Science's role is within the larger mission of advancing United States leadership in technology?
Well, thank you, and good morning, everybody. It's great to be with all of you. So I'm Dario Gil. I have spent my career working in semiconductors, artificial intelligence, and quantum computing. After grad school, I spent the last 22 years at IBM, where I was a senior vice president in charge of kind of all the advanced technology for IBM. I was the director of IBM Research, and I had been very interested on public policy and science and technology related matters. During the first Trump administration, I served on the President's Council on Science and Technology Advisors, and then the President also nominated me at the time to join the National Science Board that oversees the National Science Foundation, where ultimately I was the chairman of the board of the National Science Board. And and this year it was a huge career transition because the president nominated me to become the Undersecretary for Science in the Department of Energy, and I took on the role officially at the end of September, so it's just been a few months. And for those of you who don't know, the Department of Energy carries 3 fundamental missions. One of it is, as the name indicates, energy-related matters, and that involves, policy and regulatory and core investments in areas like, nuclear and fusion and so on. It is also under my responsibilities is the Office of Science. So as Undersecretary for Science, we're the largest supporter of physical sciences research in the United States. And then the third mission is national security mission, is the National Nuclear Security Administration. That is the role that builds and maintains the nuclear stockpile of the United States. So often people don't know all the things that the Department of Energy does, but my role is to push forward the frontiers of science and the physical sciences. And the national laboratories, of course, is one of the crown jewels of America's innovation ecosystem. 17 national laboratories in the United States. They carry a huge range of missions. There's over 40,000 scientists and engineers and technical staff. And among many incredible accomplishments, over 120 Nobel Prizes, Nobel laureates have been supported by the work of the Office of Science. 22 elements of the periodic table come from the Department of Energy, and countless other innovations. I'm sure we'll chat about it, but it is a real privilege to be able to serve my fellow citizens in the context of stewardship and pushing the frontier of the physical sciences.
Wonderful recap. When you mentioned the national labs, and I have to too, one of the things that was very impressive as a former congressional staff was when you had all the directors testifying when you testified for the House Science Committee. All of them were assembled. It was a wonderful hearing. If you haven't watched it yet, I encourage you to go to the House Science's website and actually watch it.
Yeah, if you don't have anything to do for 3 hours,
I think it's good. I think it's good.
I encourage you. It's like, prime TV. So that was quite a joy. So yeah, feel free to look it up.
I watched it, and your staff certainly watched it. That's at least 10 people. One of the things that's really exciting, I want to spend the rest of our conversation touching on this, is the recently announced Genesis mission, because you touched on some of the roles of the Office of Science itself and all the advances they have made over the years. This is really a tentpole initiative for this current administration, and the right time, the right moment, the right leader. So let's just make it really quick. First of all, let's say you're doing a television hit, choose your cable news network of choice. What do you say to the news anchor for those first 2 minutes of introducing the mission?
The Genesis mission has a very simple thesis, is that we are going to harness the current revolution in computing, driven by decades of advancements in high-performance computing, now turbocharged with AI and with quantum to come, We're going to harness that revolution in computing to transform how science and engineering are practiced in America. Ultimately, our goal is to double the productivity of the $1 trillion a year that America spends on R&D within a decade. And we're going to do so by building a platform that brings together the best supercomputing capacity in the United States, and pair it with our scientists and engineers, and pair it in closed loop feedback with our best scientific instruments that we have as a country. And we are going to demonstrate that that platform can deliver on a portfolio of lighthouse challenges. Think about grand challenges a la AlphaFold across energy, discovery science, and national security. And we're going to demonstrate that we can multiply the productivity and impact of how you carry out those missions. So push the revolution in computing, accelerate the frontier of AI, such that today it does language, it does coding well, it needs to do mathematics and physics and chemistry and engineering really well, and use that to transform how we practice science and engineering and R&D in the country.
Excellent mission statement. Transform can mean a lot of things. Transform into what? What do you hope to see as the leader of this initiative? Where do you want your people, your labs that are contributing within the Department of Energy first to really focus their work on and make deliverables for the American people?
Yeah, great question. So there's two things that I was alluding that we need to do. The first thing is we're going to build a platform. So we have been developing the Genesis mission in partnership with the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy. You're going to hear from Ethan, the CTO of the United States, in a minute. And the executive order that the president signed right before Thanksgiving calls for us building science and security platform. So think about it as physical infrastructure. We're going to bring AI supercomputing capacity. We're going to push really hard to build also fault-tolerant quantum computers. We're going to connect them all together with the incredible supercomputing, high-precision computation environments that the department is world-renowned for. So it involves both the building of physical infrastructure, the connection of this physical infrastructure, the building of a software environment that includes frontier AI model capability. It includes agentic frameworks that allows us to connect all of those into workflows, connecting them with our scientists and connecting them in close feedback loops with the system. So think about part one is a platform build. So in the end, we are going to deliver platform instantiations this year and on an ongoing basis based on an agile methodology. So but think about a deliverable is physical infrastructure, there's AI supercomputing capacity, there's fault-tolerant quantum computers right over the coming years, and there's something physically that you can see and a software environment that allows all our scientists to practice that. And part two is we are constructing and going to execute a portfolio of at least 20 lighthouse challenges in energy, discovery science, and national security. So think about success in the future instead of referring, to the AlphaFold example, and I love AlphaFold, is a great example, but imagine now a list of 20, 30, 40 of those examples being executed over the coming years. So that to me is success, and then ultimately it's a cultural transformation. It is that we see embedded in the way the national laboratories operate, but also our university partners and private sector, that these AI-enabled workflows and in the future HPC, AI, and quantum workflows are just second nature. It's just how people practice science and how people practice engineering. So that cultural transformation on how we do R&D will be a key element also of success.
That's excellent, and you alluded to it twice in your comments just now. No one can do it alone. No department can do it alone, especially given the scope of the mission and just how much really can be unlocked. We'll start intergovernmental. You mentioned your colleague from the OSTP is here. How do you envision coordinating across the federal government? Which agencies are you turning to rely on their expertise? And again, as the director of the mission, how do you envision that intergovernmental coordination?
Yeah, we've seen it as a series of concentric circles. So the first task, as we were conceptualizing the Genesis mission with OSTP, was uniting the national laboratories. So we have been working on a weekly basis with all 17 of the national laboratory and the lab directors you referenced during the congressional hearing. It was the first time in history all 17 lab directors were together, right, in the context of that hearing. And that was just evocative of how united we are, because every mission that the national laboratories carry out is going to be changed because of what is unfolding in computing and in AI specifically. So that was like task one, uniting the labs, uniting the Department of Energy, working closely then with OSTP to bring then together NSF, which will be working very closely with them, as well as the plethora of science and engineering agencies across the United States, right? We're gonna be working very closely with DARPA on quantum, with many, many stakeholders. So think about that element. I'm sure Ethan will comment more, but this is the flagship science and technology initiative of the administration, and we are, deadly serious and committed to bring the best of what the federal government has to offer. As amazing the capabilities of the federal government, science and technology endeavors and funding that we provide, that's not enough. The ambition of this is a national scale, and therefore we gotta mobilize the best of what the innovation capacity of the nation has to offer. And what that means is mobilizing the private sector, mobilizing academia, and mobilizing philanthropy that supports science and technology endeavors. On the industry front, just to give you a flavor for how important that is that we spend, as I alluded to before, $1 trillion a year in R&D. People often underestimate the scale of the R&D investments of the country. 70% of that investment comes from the private sector. And in areas that we're talking about of semiconductors, high performance computing, AI, quantum, a huge proportion of not just the dollars, but talent, capacity resides also in the private sector. So we've been very purposeful in making sure that the Genesis mission is understood as a national effort where everybody can feel welcome on that. And we announced in the White House right before Christmas, the first 24 partners from an industry perspective. There'll be more to come. That is basically everybody that's who and who in the world of AI and computing and so on, and with more to come. And you can expect that in the future that ecosystem will continue to grow, as well as academia and other stakeholders. And these are partners that are going to contribute very significant investments in making Genesis a success. So by construction, we appreciate the fact that we have to bring the best of what the nation has to offer towards this goal of transforming science and engineering in America. And I'll tell you that on the positive side, there's enormous amount of enthusiasm and momentum in getting this done and on working that together. So we're just at the beginning of that. This is going to be an unfolding sort of story of execution. But you are absolutely right? We are not approaching the Genesis mission as something we can execute by ourselves. This has to be a movement of transforming how we push computing forward, how we push AI forward and quantum, and how we reconceptualize the data sets to train the next generation of AI, how we figure out how do we do robotic laboratories and close feedback loops around that, how we recast problems in light of new workflows, and ultimately we have to deliver the goods, right? My favorite word is to act with an enormous amount of urgency and to deliver, right? Prove that the methodology hunts and that we can deliver results in ways that we couldn't do before.
I'm so glad you said all of that. We are here at CES, the world's premier technology event. Innovators show up. That's our motto. And it just further reinforces how much opportunity there is, how much enthusiasm there is. We broke records for attendance this year, so thank you to all of you for attending and joining these conversations, because it really does need to be everybody working together, pushing that ball forward. We do have a few more minutes to wrap this up and kind of conclude it. I want to pick a word, philosophically, poetically, the long line of humanity advancing. You can think back at the history books of really inspiring seminal moments that truly changed the world. We're at a technological opportunity here at the forefront of it. I really think this could be the time to do so. So if you take a scope back from the nitty-gritty to the operational that you just covered, why now and what really makes this worthwhile and such a necessary initiative and the necessary moment to do it?
The why now is actually, we should also step back and celebrate the success of the science and technology enterprise of the country. I always like to highlight that during the Second World War, there was an effort to mobilize the best of what America had to offer from scientific and engineering talent to win the war. And at the time, there was a very seminal figure called Vannevar Bush. And Vannevar Bush wrote an incredibly important memo that if you haven't read it, I highly recommend. It's called Science, the Endless Frontier. And basically, he answered a fundamental question. We've won the war. how should we continue to mobilize the best of the talent of the nation in the time of peace to advance economic prosperity, health, and our national security. And that was the beginning of creating an architecture of federal funding that grew into a hugely successful R&D ecosystem in America. The success of that endeavor allows us now to create transformative technologies that on their own right are going to change science itself. So the why now is that finally we are in the cusp of a dream that started with Leibniz 300 years ago to make all knowledge computable. And that is like a subtle sentence, but if you reflect on it, it's a really powerful sentence. So all the knowledge of the world can now be embedded and represented in really powerful high-dimensional representations present in neural networks, in novel representations in quantum systems, and using ab initio physics-based simulation models in our high-performance computing environments. The power of those instruments, this new capability, are the new telescopes of our time. So we are going to build the most powerful scientific instrument ever built with this computing capability, linking it to this ecosystem of scientific capabilities that we have built over decades. And it is only possible technologically and scientifically now. So it's a question of getting the timing right, but it is undoubtedly the case that we're in the midst of this revolution. We have to harness it, and now we got to deliver the goods. So it's just a combination of timing. And I'll say another thing to give enormous credit to the president and to this administration. It is also the political will to understand what's happening and mobilize the capacity of the federal government, and we're going to work very closely with our partners in Congress to actually create the right policy conditions and the right focus and execution to deliver on the moment. So those are the two things that are coincident in time. The timing is right scientific and technologically, a revolution is going to be possible, but we got to mobilize and act like our lives depend on it.
I'm going to pick on you again now, because you said a couple times, deliver the goods, you have to deliver, you have to act. What are we delivering?
So again, as I mentioned, we are going to stand a platform. So that will mean AI supercomputing capacity, deliver a few years from now in 28, the first fault-tolerant quantum computers. So there will be physical achievements in terms of AI flops, quantum capability, new supercomputing capacity. We will instantiate a software platform that is deployed across all our national laboratories and across our partners. And we are going to deliver on a portfolio of demonstrations, from fusion to materials to the grid to nuclear security to many areas, a portfolio of demonstrations of why the new methodology delivers different productivity and impact curves than if you had done it absent the platform, right? So those are the things that we are going to leave behind. But for example, I give one example. When we're done, in this term of administration, the amount of, just to give you one metric, of AI flops that are going to be available for our best scientists and engineers in our national laboratories is going to increase exponentially to where we are today. And you will see numbers like that, the amount of data sets that are available to train the next generation of AI, and then results in the context of this portfolio of problems. So there's a lot to deliver, but I have zero doubt that technically we're in the right direction, and there's an enormous amount of enthusiasm in our science and engineering community across the labs and the private sector to deliver on this vision.
One final question. You said by the end of the administration, 3 years goes fast. How confident are you?
Well, I'm incredibly confident because we are going to deliver a lot of results on an ongoing basis. Like I said, today, as everybody knows, good software methodology is delivered through an agile implementation. So you're going to see an ongoing basis of results on a basis by basis. It's not like we're going under a rock and we're going to come 3 years from now and say, here it is, right? So I'm very confident because of the rate at which I see technological progress, right? On the capability of everything from AI models to computing capacity, the progress in the field, the data sets that we have, and honestly, the passion and the talent that I see behind this. Look, I'll close with just a very simple, since I referenced the AlphaFold example, but just to connect the story there. So, and it's illustrative of what's going to happen. So in 1971, there was an effort that was started at one of our national laboratories, at Brookhaven National Laboratory, working with some academic partners to create something that is now known as the Protein Data Bank. So it was an effort to map all known proteins using techniques like X-ray crystallography and so on to characterize how the sequence of amino acids that create a protein, what is the three-dimensional structure that gets created. So through a series of efforts spanning 30 plus years, it took that many decades to create a base of proteins that had 200,000 structures. Using that data set and software that had been developed by Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory and so on, the team at Google DeepMind and AlphaFold used that data set that was created to train a neural network to be able to predict all known proteins. So we went in 2021-22 from 200,000 structures to 200 million, the complete set of protein structures in the world. That is an example of productivity differential to a change in methodology, right? It took 40 years to do 200,000, and then we went from 200,000 to 200 million to all known structures. The idea is, imagine doing this across all fields of science and engineering. So it would be transformative and a rate of progress. But that was a combination of data sets from the national laboratories, methodology from the labs and others, then combined with novel expertise.
Wonderful. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. I hope you all did as well. Please, everyone, thank the Undersecretary of Science, Dr. Dario Gale.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome.
Good morning.